Hello everyone. Welcome to another topic discussion from human resource management. And today our discussion is selection process in HRM. Selection process in HRM. So previously we have seen what is HRP human resource planning. Then we have seen recruitment. Now the next process is selection. Actually, recruitment and selection both are happening hand in hand. The selection process is actually followed by it's continuation of a recruitment process. This selection is so many times we use the both time interchangeably, but technically both are different. Recruitment is different, selection is different. In recruitment, actually we are creating a pool of set of employee pool. We are creating a lot of pool of employee pool. There will be a lot of applicants will be or they might have applied for the job, and so we are creating this applicant pool from various sources, maybe from newspaper, maybe from references, etc. And now it is time for you to pick your right candidate. So you need to understand which candidate is suitable for selection. So this is actually happening in a selection process. So we'll see selection process in step by step, and first we will see the definition for selection. As I just said, selection is actually happening after the recruitment process. In recruitment, we are collecting or we are creating a pool of potential applicants, where selection is a process of picking individuals who are relevant qualification to fill the job in an organization. So in a recruitment process, we are created a pool and there will be large number of applicants, and so we need to select who is the right candidate for the job. So this process is actually happening in a selection process. So there will be many candidates might have applied for the job, and you have to pick the right person or right individuals or right people for your job that is offered or that where there is vacancy. And we have we have 8 steps in selection process. We will see that 8 steps in detail. The first one is the reception, second one is screening interview, application, filling up the application blank, and again testing. There's an interview process, a medical examination, reference check, and hiring decision. So these are the important stages in selection process. We'll see one after another. Okay, the first step is the reception. Even though we are saying that it has selection process 8 steps, different organizations will be following different steps or different sequence. There will be slight variations in the steps or the order followed in different organizations. So we cannot have a uniformity in every organization. But however, so we can have a sequential 8 steps in entire when you look into entire selection process. So many organizations we can find a process called reception. Okay, just say that if an employee coming to your organization for the process, or if they have a casual walking into the organization, so you have to welcome the candidate very politely, and you should give a good impression about the organization to the employee. So maybe people in the front office or who are greeting the employee, who are meeting the employee, should create a good impression about the organization. So employment possibility must be presented to the employee very honestly and clearly. In some recruitment process, you'll have a common percent, or some selection process will have a common presentation before this so-called potential employees. So whatever it is, whatever scenario, this reception is very important. That can help you to create a good impression about the organization. And if suppose if there is a casual walk-in and you do not have an opportunity to, or do not have a vacancy in the organization, that lack of unemployment or lack of opportunity also can be clearly explained to the prospective candidate or whoever visit your organization with the intention of applying for the job. So reception is first step, so that will help to create a good impression about the organization. And the next phase is screening interview. Even though the candidates are coming after a filtering, after a shortlisting process, many organizations conduct a preliminary screening interview as part of selection process. So what they are doing, that they will be checking whether the candidates are suitability of age. They'll be checking whether they have, suppose they may say that candidates below only 35 years need to be applied, whether they'll be cross-checking it, whether because they'll be submitting their age proof and all when they come into the organization directly, and they'll have the age proof checking, and education qualification verification will be there, and experience verification will be there. All such initial clearance, because in this particular time, even though the employee might have claimed many things in the resume or CV, and there will be a direct verification of all this process will happen in the organization. So that if there is any misfit candidate, suppose if they are education qualification is not as per the as not as per their requirement, so there'll be a rejection happen. There'll be a rejection can happen here. So screening interview will screen out misfit candidates so that maybe a large number of the process is to reduce the number of employees or number of applicants in when you go for the further steps in process. So that we can the entire team can have lot of time saving. So that is the purpose of the screening interview. Many times, maybe a junior employee from HR team will be doing the screening process, so that the misfit candidates can be eliminated or removed when you go for the next process. So after screening interview, so after the screening interview, this many organizations follow this and this step, that is we call as filling up application blank. Filling up application blank. So what we do here is these candidates will be bringing or they'll having CV or biodata in a different format. So organization may require a specific format, information in a specific format. So that is what they meant by an application blank. So they collect the information about candidates as per their requirement. So that is why we call it as a standardized form. So they'll be organization will be giving a standardized form and they'll ask the potential candidate to fill that application form. So they'll be asking specific questions. So based on the resume or based on CV presented, they can fill up this application form, because this will be a standardized form, because each applicant will be bringing CV or resume or in their own format on the in varying format. So in order to have a uniformity, organization will ask every candidates to fill up an application form so that they can have this comparison as well as process in a uniform way. So that will help unify the process. Sometimes some organizations use something called weighted application blank. So weighted application blank means they'll give some weights for certain criteria. For example, experience. Okay, so they'll ask for the experience, or they will ask you to tick in the column of experience whether they are 0 to 5 or 5 to 10 or so and so. So you say that if you have 0 to 5 years of 0 to 3 years of experience, they'll give some weightage and them score for this particular the candidate. And if they have 3 to 6 work experience, they'll give another another weight over. So say that there is a 2 point for that, and if there is 0 to 3, 1 point for that, and so on. So that is what we call as weighted application blank. So based on the information they're providing in the application blank, as well as the score given to each question, so they can have a total score can be generated for each candidate. So that is a application, or that is a usage of a weighted application blank. So some organizations follow use a weighted application blank in this stage. So application filling up application blank is very important. So the purpose is to create a standardization or create a uniformity from the data collected from the employees, so from the potential employees or the applicants. That is the and when you come to the fourth stage, that is very critical stage. That is there will be a selection test. If you think about a recruitment and selection process happening in your college or campus, so what they are normally doing in an organization, there will be a team of people come from HR, so they'll do a particular corporate presentation initially. That is the first step. What will happen in normally in every recruitment process or selection process when you come to campus. And after the presentation, they will go for an aptitude test. That is a very common thing in which is happening in a what you call bulk recruitment process, also bulk selection process. And they will go for an aptitude test, and then only they will go for technical interview or HR interview. So this test is very important. Testing phase is very important. So there can be different tests. Sometimes it can be a intelligence test. Sometimes it can be aptitude test. Sometimes it can be even a personality test such as MBTI, project technique, etc. Sometimes it can be an achievement test or different or work sampling. They may ask you to do something and perform. So various kind of tests can be used in a selection process. So test is an important phase. And again, when you talk about again some modern methods or very advanced methods, such as graphology, whether your test or assessment using your handwriting. Again, polygraph is basically a kind of live detection method. In some recruitment selection process, they use, especially for very sensitive job roles, they use polygraph test. And many other organizations use polygraph in one way or other way, maybe directly, indirectly they use other two sometimes they may use sometimes some organization called something use something called TVT, truth verification test, or truth verification test is another term for polygraph. Or they may use something called CVSA, that is something called computer voice stress analysis, computer voice stress analysis. Again, this is also a kind of polygraph test or a lie detection test. But in every job role you cannot find out this, but in some selected very sensitive, very critical job roles, some organizations or especially government organization, etc., may use a polygraph test. And integrity test also another part of a selection process, or another test involved in a selection process. So testing is an important phase. So again, when you do when you select a test, you have to ensure two things, that is reliability of the test as well as validity of the test. Two important terms you have to ensure when you select a test for a selection process. So that reliability is actually the consistency of test. Whenever you are using a personality test or aptitude test, you have to check for the consistency. But when you have repeated measures, it gives a consistent score. That is what you are meant by reliability. And second one is validity you have to ensure. Suppose you have a questionnaire or you have a list of questions to check intelligence. Okay, so you have to ensure that every question covered in this intelligence questionnaire is actually measuring intelligence. So that you have to ensure that. So there should not be any misleading questions or any out of context question in an intelligence questionnaire. Every single question in an intelligence test or intelligence questionnaire should measure intelligence. So that is what we need to understand by validity. So validity is whether you are checking the right thing or not. If this test is meant to measure intelligence, every question in the test should be looking or focusing on intelligence. If the test is meant to understand your personality, every question in the test should focus on the personality aspect. So validity explains whether you are measuring the right thing or not. So reliability explains whether the test will give the consistent score or not. So validity and reliability are the two important things we have to ensure when you select a test for a selection process. So that is very important. In the next phase, we call it as interview phase. As I said in previously, when you come to a campus recruitment or selection process, you have a corporate presentation initially, then your aptitude test. After that, you can find out that after aptitude test, there'll be sometimes they'll also conduct a GD, etc. So that is also a part of a kind of elimination process. After that, they'll go for an interview. So there will be a several round of interviews. The purpose of interview is actually they'll focus something which haven't covered previously in a testing process. So interview is an oral examination. There'll be interviewer and interviewee. They'll asking questions, and their subjective aspects such as facial expression, appearance, attitude, etc. can be measured in an interview process. So interview is a very detailed area, and not explaining too much about interview. Again, you can have a few basic things. Interview can be structured, because in a structured interview there will be a few predetermined question will be followed by the interviewer and or interviewers. And there can be a non-directive, which will be, there may not be any order of questions, and situational interview will be there. There will be some situation will be given and ask the candidate how they'll respond to a situation. Something called situational judgment test, SJT, also can be used. Also can have a role in interviews, situational interviews like this. A behavioral interviews, another example. Stress interview to understand the stress level, how they are good in coping up the stress. And again, panel interview means a group of interviewers, maybe 2, 3, or 4, 5 people are giving, or they will be doing the interview, or they'll be in the panel of interview panel. So these are the various different types of interview. Again, in variation with the context, we can call it as, sometimes we can call it as technical interview, sometimes we call it HR interview, etc. So interview types again varies to situation to situation. So basically these are the few types of important types of interview. So whatever the scenario, interview is a very important stage that is normally comes after this testing phase of a selection process. And after that, normally when we understand the selection process after the interview, we may think that a selection is almost done. Okay, they'll be giving a shortlisted a list of candidates shortlisted. So they will be published a shortlisted candidates details. And actually, the selection process is not ending here. There will be 2-3 steps further you have to go again. So next phase is medical examination. After this candidate being shortlisted, they will be asked you to uh, undergo a medical examination, that in order to ensure that they are medically fit, or their medical suitability for the particular job is ensured. Their physical measurement are in accordance with the job requirements. Some jobs request a real good physique, and their physical qualities of physical fitness is important for some job. What are the scenario? Most of the company do a kind of medical examination after this candidate is being shortlisted. So this phase is very, very important. Even if they are not medically fit, some rejection possibility is there in that phase also. So after the medical examination, and there is an important phase we call it, important phase we call it a reference check. Normally in our CV or biodata, these candidates usually give some references. If they are experienced employee, they may give a reference of their previous employer, or if you are a fresher candidate, a new candidate, or a fresher, they may give a reference of maybe the principal or a director of the college or the business school they are studied, etc. Or maybe they give the basic details of or contact details of placement officer, whoever it is. So the reference check is an important thing. So this HR team or from the organization, from the employers, the team will be checking the references given, and they will ask you and they will contact the references and get the details about the candidate. So they'll checking whether how long this person know this candidate, and what are the basic aspect, how good his personality or her personality is all about. So reference check is very important. Some phases rejection can happen in references if your references is if your reference there is a if you are getting a bad image or bad impression after referencing, sometimes organization can have a rejection. Of course, that is very, very important. So because selecting a candidate is a very, very critical role, so they have to do it very carefully. So reference gives a good idea about the candidates, because especially about their behaviors as well as their past activities, etc. So reference check is very important. Normally we don't recommend candidates to give your someone in your blood relation in your reference check. So that is not actually allowed. So only the professional relationship can be, or people who are you're connected professionally, maybe from your college, somebody taught you, or your previous employer, or HR, your previous HR manager, or your previous reporting manager. In a professional relationship, you have to, when you give a reference check or details of reference, you have to keep a professional relationship in that context. So maybe someone personal to you, especially in having a blood relation to you, you should not keep their details in a reference check. So that is very, very important. So after reference check, actually to certain extent, you can have a hiring decision, whether you can have a decision to select the candidate or not. And in some organization, they provide the offer letter first, then they'll go for a reference check, and then they'll go for the final appointment letter. In some organization that is different. Some organization, after their reference check, they will issue something called offer letter, and when they accept the offer letter, they will give you the appointment letter. So that is a process. So it can vary to organization to organization. However, this two things what I explained is after the interview, that you have to undergo a medical examination, as well as there will be a reference check from the part of employer. So then only the entire process will be finalized. So that organization or the employer can have two decisions, can come to a selection or a rejection decision. So basically, this is the end of selection process. Next is, of course, it is issuing an offer letter or appointment letter, etc. So that is in brief selection process. We'll see in another video. Thank you.